Dave for Dave is Just Dave, where we explore abuse recovery with an eye on positive attraction in the future. And today we're going to discuss the all-important question, why me? Why was I targeted for a narcissistic type abuse, a toxic type abuse? Why did this happen to me? And we're going to explore 3 reasons why you might have been chosen for this type of abuse. But really keep in mind, of course, it can happen to anyone, and you do need to forgive yourself. But there are some definite reasons that it could happen. So the first, and maybe this is the most common, I would say, is it's situational, right? So maybe you moved to a new city, maybe you started a new job, maybe you joined some kind of new organization, and you were just busy going about your business. And this person had their eye out for new supply. So remember that the narcissistic type person or the toxic type person is on the lookout, essentially living their life to kind of harvest the energy of others. And they're always going to be on the lookout for somebody new to harvest energy from. And so when you show up at a new job, in a new city, in a new organization, they're laser focused on you. You may not notice them, but they're laser focused on you. And because your guard is down, because you're busy making new connections, they get on a subconscious level that you're vulnerable to this. I'm going to make a comparison. Maybe you've lived in a city where you have encountered a lot of panhandlers. Now, this is not to malign panhandlers and the mental illness issues that may be present with homelessness and panhandling. However, if you ever have worked in an urban environment every single day where you encounter panhandlers, then you know after a few days of this, essentially, if you commute by train or bus or something like that and you're walking by oftentimes the very same panhandlers each day, you simply can't really afford to give them money each day. Or maybe you could, but it's not advisable. However, so you kind of, when you're in that circumstance every single day in an urban environment, you kind of just steel yourself to panhandlers. And, maybe it's unkind, but you kind of pretend that they don't exist, or you want them to think you pretend that they don't exist, because you learn pretty quickly that there aren't a lot of super meaningful ways to engage with this type of person. And one thing that I've noticed is that if for whatever reason you were out of it because you had some kind of argument with somebody that day at work, or something was going on at home, or whatever the situation was, your guard would slip, and that's when you could get in a conversation with a panhandler who, once they've got you there as a captive audience, is going to tell you some type of story about they're out of gas and their family's stranded or something like that. And it can be pretty difficult once you get sucked into the story to refuse to give them money. And that kind of reminds me of being targeted by a narcissistic type person or a toxic type person. They are looking for that person that when they're in a new job, new city, new organization, they have their guard down. Their guard just slips. And they are going to eventually make their move and kind of target you. So that's the first reason. So something situational, a change in your life that makes you more vulnerable, feeling more alone, and this is being recorded during the coronavirus pandemic, where we all probably feel a little alone. So we're all kind of vulnerable to it right now, so that's an important thing to keep in mind. The second reason, and a super important reason, what you have to offer this narcissistic person or toxic type person could be a unique match for what they need. Now, this depends what it is, might be something that you may not guess, but at a low level, it could be just something like a washing machine. Do you have a place where you can wash clothes? That could be enough for somebody. I know it seems hard to believe if you have lived a kind of a life of privilege where you have access to these things on a regular basis, but somebody may want to target you to use your washing machine, to use your internet connection, to get rides to and from work, just plain old cash, just anything that it wouldn't necessarily mean something to you, but this alone could be a reason that you're targeted by this type of person. At a higher level, when somebody has more of an income and they're more self-supporting, more intelligent type person, they could be looking at you for something that you would just never guess, like some type of escape from some situation that they're in. For example, like maybe one of their relatives comes to stay at their house, and they want to be able to go to somebody else's house while their relatives are there every single time they're there. Something as unusual as this, or something they're working in another city or nearby, and they need a place to kind of have a base of operations from. You won't necessarily be able to guess, but really take a look back at your situation and try and understand, was there something unique that you had to offer that might have been a benefit to this kind of toxic person or narcissistic person? And of course, as always, it can just be purely for attention. That's a big drive. But usually there's something else that kind of sweetens the pot for them that they may discover while targeting you. Like, not only can I get attention from this person, but and probably sexual attention, and what about this? I can wash clothes there, or I can get money, or an internet connection, or just a place to stay. Who knows? So that's the second reason. What do you have to offer? And then the third reason, this is probably the most important reason I would say, is because you didn't stop them when they attempted to break some type of boundary with you, or you reinforced some type of unusual behavior that they were doing. So when they've got their eye on you, when you show up in, like we talked about, new job, new city, new organization, when they've got their eye on you and they're watching you all the time to see how you interact with people and what you might be like, and if you might be a good source of supply for them, at some point, like I said, they're going to make a move. It wouldn't necessarily seem like a move to you if you're not kind of tuned into this, but they may come over and they may have some type of sort of inappropriate conversation with you. I don't know quite what it would be. Could be anything. Could be like some type of sexual story that seems out of place, or some type of story that just sounds like not the kind of story you would typically tell somebody. And you'll kind of get a feeling about it when it happens, that like, something's unusual here. But you tolerate it and you listen to it, and maybe you even reinforce it a little bit by asking questions about it. That's a powerful clue to this person that you can tolerate a lot of just extra sort of garbage in your life, and they'll be like, hey, I can bring this to this person's life. Or it even could be something like just as simple as like they walk by you and they touch you and they brush your shoulder or something like that, or they put their hand on your shoulder or the small of your back or something like that. Trust me, you'll feel like when it happens, it won't feel good. It will feel like, oh, what just happened? This person touched me, and like they didn't like molest me, but it was unexpected and it felt strange. Like, pay attention to that feeling, because it is strange. Again, it's a reach out there to test a boundary, and you didn't stop it, and you may have reinforced it, and so that could be a reason why you were targeted. So those are the three reasons that I wanted to talk about. Like I said, situational, you moved to a new city, started a new job, you joined a new organization. What do you have to offer? What you have to offer might be a really unique match, whether it's a washing machine, rides, cash, a place to stay when a relative visits that they don't like. It could be hard to guess. And because you didn't stop them when they broke a boundary. And kind of continuing with the not stopping them when they broke a boundary, obviously that's the same thing that happens in the love bombing stage. Got another video on love bombing, link in the description. So the love bombing stage is just a constant boundary breaking where they are relentlessly asking you all kinds of questions. What's the reason? They're collecting the information to be able to create that persona that they think that you're going to really like. And that is probably the most critical boundary breaking that happens. And also, of course, even if you had one of these three ways in for them, you could also attempt to stop them once you felt like you were being love bombed, but you didn't do that either. Now, one thing you might be wondering about is, as you start to connect the dots from your past, you may realize, unfortunately, that you've been through this multiple times, that this is a pattern in your life, that you've let somebody into your life in this way multiple times, a narcissistic type person, a toxic type person. And you may wonder, well, how could I fall for this multiple times? And the answer is that it looks different every time. So continuing with our 5 steps that we've been talking about in all these videos, that first step is forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for being a target multiple times and falling for it multiple times, because even though you had the life experience where you might have recognized it, the reality is it looks a little bit different every time. So maybe the first time you were targeted for it, it was by like a person who didn't have quite the same educational background, or they didn't at the time have a job. And then the next time somebody targeted you, it was like a more high achieving person, and they did have a great education, and they did have a pretty good job, or they had generational type money that was passed down to them, or whatever. All of this type of stuff would cause it to look different, and you may be kind of measuring things against like red flags, which I would caution you in the love bombing stage. First of all, don't get into the love bombing stage, but don't give away all your red flags to anyone, because the nefarious person can use those red flags to win you over. So for example, you might say, well, my last girlfriend, she just never showed up on time. She was only 10 minutes late. Okay, while this seems like just a total throwaway detail of a story to include, unfortunately for a narcissistic type person or a toxic type person, they could seize on that and go, aha, 10 minutes late's bad. I'm going to be 10 minutes early. And believe me, if you encounter somebody that's doing something like this with you, they'll make sure that you know that they're 10 minutes early, and they're going to really, hey, I showed up early again, like, because they really think that that's so important to you, even though you may have just tossed it out there as just some random thing. And that's just kind of another warning sign, right? They just keep bringing up the same information from the love bombing stage that could be fairly meaningless to you, but they've zeroed in on it as a way to target you. So whether it's a different income level, different education level, could be a different gender, or somebody who's more of an introvert, somebody who's more of an extrovert, all these things could be reasons why it looks different and why you might have been a victim of this multiple times. So just to reinforce the 5 steps, you're going to forgive yourself because whether it's even happened to you multiple times, you still lack that life experience to be able to recognize it and listen to that voice and trust that voice inside. You are going to take some responsibility because you didn't listen to the voice inside. But most importantly, you're going to resolve to learn from it. So, we've talked now about how you might be targeted. You're going to have your guard up, just like I talked about with the panhandling. Again, nothing against panhandlers, but when you're in an urban environment every day, you just kind of have to steel yourself so that you're not reacting to panhandlers all day when you're in a big city. And it's the same thing when you go into a new environment, new city, new organization. You're going to have your game face on. You are not going to allow yourself to kind of be pulled aside by somebody who's looking to target you. As you're in recovery, make sure to take care of yourself. Eat, rest, exercise, socialize. And lastly, most importantly, you're going to make sure that as you ruminate and reflect on these experiences of the past that you unfortunately regret, that you are not going to share the ruminations with this person who has treated you in a bad way. So you're not going to write some big long email, big long texts, attempt to call them, attempt to contact them. We haven't talked about it a lot. It will be the subject of a future video, but the most important thing is that you stay as much as possible in a no contact state with this person who's harmed you. The reason is when you reach out to them, they cannot respond, they can use it to toy with you, and it's only going to make you feel worse. Whenever we talk about issues like this, there's always different reactions that people might have or different experiences that you may want to share. Please do that in the comments. And if you feel that this video would be helpful to someone, I'd appreciate it if you would share it or give a like and a subscribe. That helps me out. And stay tuned for more videos on this type of abuse. Thanks for watching.